What's up, money? Moicano here, and we just sacrificed the UFC fight night last weekend so the MMA gods can bless us with UFC 299. No injuries, nobody pulling out, and all in great fights, submissions and knockouts. And finally, UFC is not gonna be mad at me to talk about UFC fight night cards. UFC 299 prediction only here, the best prediction channel of the universe, my brother. I have all the answers, and if you don't believe that, you stay tuned. UFC 299, great card from the bottom to the top. Dana White, do you guys remember what he said about the 300? I think 299 is the same. We have Jailton Almeida and Curtis Blaydes on the prelims. That's unbelievable. We have many other good fights. And let's start from the beginning, my brother, as we should. Joanne versus Maryna Moroz. I'm not gonna talk a lot about that fight, but I have Maryna Moroz winning. Joanne is 38 years old. She lost 5 times by submission, and on that fight, I think Maryna Moroz will try to take her down and will try to finish her. And I think Joanne Calderwood, she always was a striker, never was a grappler, and I think Maryna Moroz will take advantage of that. Next fight, CJ Vergara versus Asu Almabaev. CJ Vergara is coming off 2 winnings. He beat 2 Brazilian guys that have the same style. Strikers, 2 strikers. He beat Daniel Miojo, and that guy is like 0-5 in UFC or something like that. And Vinicius Salvador, that he's coming off 2 losses, and 1 is for CJ Vergara, and he is a good striker. But overall, I think CJ Vergara is not gonna be able to stop the takedowns and stop the chain wrestling and the grappling of the other motherfucker that has a hard name to remember. Asu Almabaev is a good grappler, is a good wrestler, and I think he gonna get this. But again, nobody really cares about the early prelims, so let's keep going. Next fight of the card, we have Robelis Despaigne versus Josh Parisian. And UFC, I know what you're trying to make here, my brother. I know you're trying to build up a new Yoel Romero, Cuban medalist, but this time from Taekwondo, 35 years old as hell to get in the UFC, 4-0. But I advise you to look into his record. 4-0, only fought guys with no fights. The last fight, he fought a guy with 1 fight, but other than that, he fought newbies, and we know why. People are trying to push him, and I saw a little bit of his videos. Of course, he's a Taekwondo medalist, Olympic champion, so of course he's going to be good with the kicks. But if you see his hands on the videos, very bad hands. But the problem is Josh Parisian, even though he has a lot of fights in UFC, his hands are even worse. Brother, let me tell you something. This guy is a completely mess. I don't want to shit on him because I know he's a UFC fighter and as a heavyweight and this and that. Let me be honest with you. This guy is not UFC level, and you can see why they are matching up the fight. That's a way for the Cuban guy to beat up a fat motherfucker, and that's the way they are doing. You know, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody on that, but it's just the way I see. I see a guy with 4-0 fighting nobodies, and then he got his UFC contract, which is very hard with 4 fights and 35 years old, and then he fights Josh Parisian. And let me tell you something, Josh Parisian is as bad as they come, my brother. As bad as they come. He lost to Park Porter. If you see somebody losing to Park Porter, you see this guy is not good. Again, I don't want to shit on him again too much, but a little bit, because in reality, I don't know what's going to happen, because the other guy, Cuban, Taekwondo medalist, tall guy, strong guy, 4-0, but no hands at all. Josh Parisian, even less hands, but maybe he's tough. I watched couple of his fights, but he's not that tough. He doesn't punch that hard. I mean, that's a crazy fight to watch, you know, and I want to watch just to see what's going to happen, because I don't know. I have no idea, and I think that fight should not be on UFC 299 as a sport, but as an entertainment, I like it. Sign me on, motherfucker. Next fight of the night, Philipe versus Ion Cutelaba, and that's going to be a hard fight to predict because, of course, Philipe is one of my friends. He trains at ATT, but he's 38 years old, and don't get me wrong, I think he's a better boxer than Cutelaba if we see his technical, you know. But we have to remember that he lost to Tani Bowser, and Tani Bowser is not on UFC anymore, and I think Cutelaba has way more power than Tani Bowser. So that's why I think that's going to be a hard fight for Philipe because he's not going to take Cutelaba down, because usually Philipe doesn't shoot for takedowns. I think he will try to strike Cutelaba, and eventually, I hope not, but eventually Cutelaba is going to get the TKO or the KO because he has more power than Philipe Again, he's my friend. I wish he can beat Cutelaba, and he can do it, but as the odds suggest, people are seeing him lose the fight, and so do I. Only because, not taking anything from him, of course, he was a PFL champion and he's a great fighter, but I think he should work more on the wrestling department, because when you're going to face a guy like Cutelaba, a powerful striker, it's not a good business to stay on the feet trading punches, and that's what Philippe usually does, because, like I say again, good boxer, but Cutelaba is just more powerful than him, and that's why I'm picking Cutelaba, but I hope I'm wrong. Next fight of the night, we have Michel Pereira versus Michał Oleksiejczuk. I don't know how to say his name, but this is a Michel's battle, and the Brazilian Michel, in my opinion, is going to win. How? With the vitality, my brother. You guys remember he used to fight on 170, doing backflips and doing crazy stuff, but now he is more commitment to the success, commitment to the training and to the game plan, and he's been doing pretty well on the 185 division. And in the other hand, the Polish guy, he used to be 205, but he was not a big 205. Now he's a middleweight, and I think Michel Pereira, the Brazilian motherfucker, is going to beat him to defend the takedowns and impose his striking game. And he's good, he's powerful, he's explosive, and I think Michel Pereira gets the job done inside the 3 rounds. Can I be wrong? I'm always wrong. Can I be right? I'm always right. You decide. And remember, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't bet. And after, if you lose your house, don't call me financial advisor, my brother. I do this only for fun purposes, okay? Não falei certo. I only do that for entertainment purpose, okay, my friend? So I tell what I see, and I see Michel Pereira beating the shit of Michał Polish, okay? Let's go into the next one. Tough one to predict, motherfucker. That's a tough fight to predict. You have Pedro Munhoz versus Phillips, and Phillips is good and he's young. When you're good and when you're young, that's a tough battle to be on, my brother. And again, Pedro Munhoz, my friend, I see him every day on the gym. I consider him one of my good friends in ATT. But again, I think that's not a favorable matchup for him. The guy is too young and the guy is good and he moves a lot, you know? And I think Pedro Munhoz, sometimes he has problems when fighters move a lot, because usually Pedro Munhoz likes to engage and like trade the punches on the pocket. He likes to be on the pocket because he's very strong and he's powerful and he can take a shot. I think Pedro Munhoz was never knocked out on his career, or even nobody knocked him down. So that's why he trusts a lot on his chin. But usually, like when the fighters like to move and use the footwork, and that's Phillips' way of fighting, I think it's going to be a problem for Pedro Munhoz. So I have Phillips as the favorite, you know, and I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Pedro Munhoz finishes him. I hope Pedro Munhoz shoot for takedowns, or even get a guillotine on him, because Pedro is very good, or even knock him out. But if the fight go to the decision, I have Phillips. Man, I tell you, this card is amazing. We have fights like that. Rafael de los Anjos against Mateusz, the gamer Gamrot. And that's a fight that I have personally a lot invested on the fight. Why? Because Gamrot is my friend. He is one of my main training partners when he is on ATT. We help each other a lot. So of course I want to see him win. And you have Rafael dos Anjos, that a guy that beat me for 5 rounds, my brother. And remember, not 5 rounds, 4 rounds, the 5th, I give it back.
And of all the superlatives,
but again, I was drinking steaks and eating beers in Brazil. And you guys know how that works, my brother. So hopefully I see Gamrot beating the shit off Rafael dos Anjos. So yeah, I can have revenge on him. But jokes aside, that's a very hard fight to predict. Very, very, very hard fight to predict. It's not gonna be easy. I see the numbers and I see people saying Gamrot will beat him easily. And like I say, I fought one and I trained with one, so I know I know what I'm talking about. So Moicano, what's the difference between the two? I think Rafael dos Anjos has the better jiu-jitsu, the better grappling, like staying on the top, getting the back, and even with submissions. Even though Gamrot is a good submission artist, is a good jiu-jitsu player, I think Rafael dos Anjos is better on the submissions and on the transitions and controlling on the top. I think Rafael dos Anjos does that pretty well. He became champion doing that. And Mateusz Gamrot sometimes he let the guys like get back to the feet, and I think sometimes he has a little bit of problem in controlling opponents on the ground. But he's very good at taking opponents down. I think his wrestlers is better than Rafael dos Anjos. Again, that's not gonna be an easy fight for Mateusz Gamrot, because I think Rafael dos Anjos is going to impose a lot of troubles to Mateusz Gamrot. But I see Mateusz as the favorite by a little margin, little bit of margin, because I think both guys are very good athletes. They have very good, strong cardios, but I think the age is a aspect that can prevail on this scenario, my brother. And I'm saying fancy words because I'm studying English, my brother. But let me tell you something. Do you guys remember when Dos Anjos fought Luque? There was a lot of scrambles and he looks a little bit of tired. So with a full training camp, 3 months of preparation, they had a lot of time to prepare for the fight. I think Mateusz Gamrot will be ready for 5 rounds, and I think that's going to be trouble for RDA. But again, hard fight to predict. I don't know if Mateusz Gamrot will be able to be 5 rounds controlling Rafael dos Anjos on the ground. On the other hand, I don't know how they're gonna equivale themselves on the feet. 2 southpaw guys, not very well known by their strikers, so that could be a striking match too, and that would be completely different than what I expected, because I expected Mateusz Gamrot shooting for takedowns and try to control Rafael dos Anjos. Rafael dos Anjos is getting back, and I expect 3 rounds of a battle, and in the end, I think Mateusz Gamrot will beat RDA, but I don't think it's going to be an easy fight. If you are a degenerate gambler, I'm not advising you, but if you want to take my advice, I advise you, that fight is going to go to the decision, in my opinion, okay? The fight is going to be a decision, and you could throw a little bit money on the distance, because I don't see anybody submit each other, okay? And not knocking anybody out, because both guys good strikers. Gamrot a little bit more fluid on the striking, RDA a little bit heavy hands and good kicks. So that's going to be an interesting matchup, okay? Se o guys são I know a lot of people are talking about the fight, but I think personally that's a good fight. Kathleen Kutchichugan versus Maycee Barber, my brother. I think that's a good fight, and I think Kathleen, she is 35 years old, and she's coming off a loss to Fiorot, and Fiorot is very good. And Maycee Barber is in a winning streak, and she beat the Brazilian girl Amanda Ribas in a very good fight. That was a good fight, and I think Maycee Barber as the favorite minus 200, I think it's too much. I think Kathleen, she is the better striking. I don't see Maycee Barber shooting for takedowns on her. I see a striking battle, and I think Kathleen, even though she's 35, I think she's the most technical fighter on the feet. I like to watch her and I think she's going to beat Mace Barber, and I think it's going to be an entertainment fight. Let me know what do you guys think. That's my opinion for the fight. I have Kathleen, probably by decision. I'm telling you, this UFC 299 is crazy. The last fight of the prelims is Jailton Almeida versus Blaydes. How crazy is that? That's a fight that I want to see a long time. And let me tell you something. If Malhadinho, Jailton Almeida beats, caralho, vai se fuder. If Jailton Almeida beats Blaydes, just give the belt to him, my brother. Just give the belt to him, because if a Brazilian guy with no wrestling background can go over there, take a state champion to the ground and beat the shit out of him or even submit him, just give the belt to him. So what are my takes on this fight? We have to look to Blaydes' background record first, and he was a state champ and he got a lot of takedowns, so he has credentials on wrestling. But we have to remember, MMA is different, okay, but he's doing the takedowns and the wrestling on the heavyweight on the UFC. The only times that he lost was when he got knocked out by Derek Lewis, by Francis Ngannou, and by Pavlovich, big dudes with heavy hands. So my whole take here is this: can Jair Malhadinho knock Blaydes out? I was trying to look for Jailton Almeida fights, and he was always shooting for takedowns, always. He is never trying to strike with nobody. So imagine if Blaydes can defend Jailton Almeida's takedowns. I think that's going to be trouble for Jailton Almeida. And we have to remember, Jailton Almeida used to be a 205, and if we see his record, if you look into his record, he never faced a wrestler. The closest thing that he faced as a wrestler was Danilo Marques, a jiu-jitsu guy on 205, and he dominated him pretty easily. But we have to remember, Blaydes is not a 205 and he's a big heavyweight. And on the other hand, Malhadinho is not that big. Last fight, Malhadinho was 236 pounds. Blaydes won 260 something. So that's a huge difference, especially because both are grappling specialists, one on jiu-jitsu and grappling and another one in wrestling. I think people are giving this edge to Malhadinho sometimes because, of course, he has more finish power because he go for submissions. But if you look, the both fighters, that's going to be very hard for Malhadinho to control Blaydes on the ground or even submit him. And if Blaydes can stop Jair Malhadinho, what's going to be? So that's a very hard fight to predict. Very good fight. I want to watch. If Malhadinho, Jailton Almeida beats him, I truly believe that he's going to be champion, because if you are heavyweight and if you have grappling and jiu-jitsu, you one step or even two steps ahead of the competition, because let's be honest, heavyweights, most of them are lazy and they don't want to train, they don't want to go to the grappling sessions, they don't want to do strength and conditioning, they just want to have powerful hands, hitting the mitts, hitting the bag. And if a guy like Malhadinho can go and run over Blaydes, he's going to do that over the other contenders on the division. So I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Malhadinho beats Blaydes, but because the wrestling advantage of Blaydes, because the weight, I think Blaydes will beat Malhadinho. And you have to remember, wrestling is being a problem to jiu-jitsu since the beginning, since day one. Since Royce Gracie, when he fought Dan Severn, he beat Dan Severn at the time, but that was a tough fight.
6.5 hours later.
Guys like Mark Coleman, if you watch guys like even Khabib and even Islam Makhachev and Charles, when you put a wrestling and jiu-jitsu guy, if the jiu-jitsu guy doesn't have wrestling too, that's going to be very hard. But the good side for Malhadinho is Malhadinho has the wrestling, he has the takedowns, but I want to see against a real wrestler, and he never faced a wrestler until this point, but we're going to see against Blaydes. So very interesting fight. I think the fight makes a lot of sense. I think that fight will move a lot the heavyweight division, and I hope Malhadinho wins, but for me, the favorite is Blaydes. Let's move on. Next fight of the card, Petr Yan versus Yadong Song, and that's a great fight. And to me, the odds are wrong. I think Petr Yan should be way more favorite on that fight because both strikers, and in 135, it's hard to see a better striker than Petr Yan. And let's be honest, he did not lose to Sean O'Malley. Not at all. It was a split decision and tough fight, but I see Petr Yan winning clearly, my brother. Very clearly. And if you take this off, he lost to Aljamain Sterling in a split decision, lost to Sean O'Malley in a split decision, and lost to Merab Dvalishvili. But we have to remember, Dvalishvili is the machine. Wrestling, cardio is totally different than Yadong Song. Totally different. That's going to be a strike battle, and I think Petr Yan is the best 135 like in boxing. He's just amazing boxer, and he cannot afford to lose. Even though they were controversial losses, a loss is a loss, and he coming from 3 losses in the paper, not in my eyes. But again, he cannot afford to lose, and I think he's beating Yadong Song. And let's see, 31 years old, still young, former champion. Let's see what the future bring to Petr Yan. But on that fight, UFC 299, good fight. I see Petr Yan winning. Gilbert Burns and Jack Della Maddalena. I don't know why that fight is happening. Number 4 against number 11. I guess UFC like a lot Jack Della Maddalena, or they could not find opponents for Gilbert Burns, even though the fight is going down. And I think Gilbert Burns is the best underdog of the card. And you could ask me why, Moicano, why he's the best underdog, and I'm gonna share with you my thoughts, you motherfucker. First of all, I think every time that Gilbert Burns fight, people are underestimating him. He's a complete fighter, good striker, good grappler. Remember his fight against Chimaev, he can take a punch, he's a brawler, very good fighter. Even though he's a little bit shorter than Jack Della Maddalena, and of course Jack Della Maddalena is the better striker on this situation. Gilbert Burns faced good strikers before, like Stephen Thompson, and could take him down. And let's talk about Jack Della Maddalena. His last fight, who he fought at the same caliber of Gilbert Burns. He fought Kevin Holland, and he beat him in a split decision. But remember, Kevin Holland is not a complete MMA fighter. He's a striker, and sometimes he even give up on fights just to make the fight more entertaining, right? He's entertaining. He's a guy that likes to go over there and please the public. And that sometimes is not the most smart thing to do as a fighter when you're putting your life on risk, okay? Other than that, Jack Della Maddalena almost lost to Basil Rafael in a split decision. And the guy, Basil, took him down in less than 15 seconds on the first round. So imagine if Gilbert Burns taking him down on the beginning of the fight. Of course, now it's different because Jack Della Maddalena is training for that, to avoid the grappling, the submission, the wrestling, and I get it. But he didn't face any good wrestler in the UFC so far. Randy Brown, good striker. Danny Roberts, striker. Ramazan, striker. Angel Lusa, striker, you know. So, in reality is, if Basil could take him down with that easily, I think Gilbert Burns will take him down. He will go with the plan. He'll trade some punches, throw some punches, and then shoot for takedowns, and eventually gonna get Maddalena on the ground. My only question if Durinho, he's 37 years old, and that could be a problem since there is 10 years in difference. So can Durinho keep going for 3 rounds like that? And I think so. If you see Durinho's YouTube channel and the amount of time that he puts on preparation, on strength and conditioning, on training, on eating healthy, I think Durinho, he's still in a very good place mentally and physically. So that's why, to me, is a disrespect see him as the underdog on the fight. And remember, that's not financial advisor, but in my opinion, Gilbert Durinho will get the job done against Jack Della Maddalena. hopefully with a submission or a TKO. And it's not that I don't like Jack Della Maddalena. I like his style. I think he's fluid on the striking. But let's be honest, his personality on the mic is not that great. I remember when he had some controversial decision against, if I'm not mistaken, it was Kevin Holland. And he's saying, it is what it is, watch that. He was not talking to the fans. I don't know why he has that much hype. I guess 6-0 in UFC is a great record. But in my opinion, the train is about to be derailed, my brother. Gilbert Burns all the way, okay? See you soon, motherfucker.
A few inches later.
I have been here speaking to you degenerate for the last 40 minutes, my brother. We still didn't get to the main event, and that's not even the co-main event. And we have Kevin Holland against Michael Venom Page. And my opinion doesn't matter. None of specialists that say you what's going to happen matter, because nobody knows what's going to happen. We have Kevin Holland and Michael Page, UFC versus Bellator, and I guess everybody's liking the fight, but nobody see how the fight goes and can predict, because even though I like Michael Venom Page and I like his style, in reality, he faced a lot of unskilled fighters. Of course, he faced guys like Douglas Lima, and he lost to Douglas Lima, and then he beat Douglas Lima, and Douglas Lima is a good fighter, but the majority of fighters that he beat, they were not in the same level as Kevin Holland or the fight in the UFC. In the other hand, Kevin Holland faced a lot of good fighters in UFC and on the middleweight and in the 170, so I guess he has more experience. But again, nobody knows what's going to happen, because Michael Venom Page is just too good on the striking, and Kevin Holland like to entertain people, so everything could happen. But I still have Kevin Holland winning the fight. But again, don't bet. I don't know what's happening. I'm just watching that fight as a fan, and I love that fight. That's one of the best fights of the card so far, and I hope they deliver it, okay? So I have Kevin Holland as a small favorite, but nobody knows. That's a fight that don't make any sense to me other than UFC trying to push BSD number 12 on the lightweight, facing the number 4 or 5 on the... facing a veteran, a condecorate guy that doesn't have anything to gain off the fight, unless money. I think they offer a lot of money to him. I think UFC is trying to make a name for BSD through Poirier. And unfortunately, I think BSD will win the fight, because he didn't got really beat on his career other than fighting Eliseu Zelensky on the 170, and we saw his durability. So he has durability, he has cardio, he's good. I think sometimes he committed me too much to the brawl when he's on the pocket, and Poirier could take advantage of that. But I think on that fight specifically, he's not gonna be too wild. I think he will shoot for takedowns and eventually got Poirier to the ground and gonna make Poirier tired. And that's going to be hard, because remember, that's 5 rounds. Poirier back in the day fought Dan Hooker, fought Anthony Pettis, fought Justin Gaethje the first fight, and in each and every that fight he was losing, and then he take advantage of the fight of the 5 rounds, and he come back and he beat the opponent. So that could happen on the fight. So I think the odds, they are not too crazy. I think the odds are about to be right. I think BSD should be the favorite, because the youth, because the moment, because the momentum. Poirier was talking about maybe this is his last fight, who knows. So I think that's never a good mindset to go through a fight, especially through a guy that's very dangerous. Don't get me any wrong. I'm saying that fight doesn't make sense ranking wise and popularity wise, but the guy is skillful, the guy is dangerous, the guy is ready, and he wants his chance. So I have BSD winning, and I hope I'm wrong. I cheer for Poirier, and hopefully Poirier can get the job done and get a KO and a TKO, but most likely he'll lose by a decision or submission, unfortunately, and I hope I'm wrong, okay? So I hope Dustin Poirier wins, but I'm seeing BSD winning via submission or even a decision. I don't see him knocking Poirier out, but who knows? A fight's a fight, everything can happen, and that's going to be a great fight. That's what important. Sean O'Malley and Marlon Vera, I think that's a great fight. I'm not gonna take too long to tell you who is the favorite and who I think will win, because that's an easy fight to judge. Not that's going to be an easy fight, because I don't think if you fight Marlon Vera, you're gonna have an easy fight, because he's a dog. Usually he loses the first and second round, and then he get back. So he has good experience on 5 rounds, and that could be an advantage to him. But in reality, since the first fight, Sean O'Malley is another fighter. He's on another level. And even though I think he lost to Petr Yan back in the day, I think just for him to be able to hang with Petr Yan on the feet, I think that's amazing, because I think Petr Yan is way better than Marlon Vera on the striking. Marlon Vera too stationary. He doesn't have a lot of footwork. He's dangerous. And sometimes when he see like the opportunity to finish the fight, he finished the fight, like Dominic Cruz and many other fights. I think that's a dangerous fight for Sean O'Malley, but at the same time, I think he will get the job done. I don't know if it's a TKO. I'm not seeing him taking him down, but I see him like outstriking him on the first and the second, maybe on the third round, and then the fight gets more tough. But in the end of the day, I'm not gonna talk too much about the fight, because I think Sean O'Malley is a great product for the UFC. I think he chose the fight, because that was not the fight to make. Everybody knows the fight to make was Merab Dvalishvili, but they put him because they have this bad blood. He beat him one time, like you or not, and in the end, this is business. And I see Sean O'Malley beating Chito Vera and then fighting Merab Dvalishvili. UFC 299, great card. I love it, the fights. Let me know what you guys think about the fights, what you guys think about the channel so far. And remember, if you can help us, like, subscribe, all that. If you don't, that's up to you. But let me tell you something, that helps a lot the algorithm. So share, follow us on the social media, and let me know what you guys are thinking about the UFC and the content. See you guys soon. More content soon this week. Thank you so much. Us.